Well, hello! Hi! So, a few of you have asked for a tutorial on these little hearts that I posted on my socials the other day. So, I thought, you know what? Okay, let's do it. So, these lovely little hearts. I am going to show you how to make a set that is going to be very, very similar to these, using this rice paper from Decoupage Green. This is called Le Jaune. I would have used the same rice paper that I used here, which is Cocoa from Decoupage Green, but I don't have another one of them. So this is kind of a similar type of paper with a lot of different elements on it that are just about the right size for what we're trying to do here. So I thought that this is going to be a pretty decent alternative to this. Now, a few things that you're going to need for this is plywood or MDF hearts with a little hole inside. These are about 7 centimeters in size. You're going to need some acrylic primer or acrylic paint or chalk paint. The main thing is that it needs to be white. Then you're going to need some sandpaper. Very, very, very important. Don't ever underestimate how important sandpaper is when you're trying to create a good quality decoupage works. You're going to, of course, need your decoupage paper, which in my case is a rice paper, but you can use any other type of paper. Of course, you're going to need your decoupage glue, some paints in colors that will match the elements or the main kind of hue of each of your hearts, some stencils for the back, which we'll get to that later, and of course some varnish, which in my case I am currently testing out this heavy duty extreme varnish from Polyvine, and I have to say I have been absolutely loving it. I'm almost out and I'm gonna need to go and I'm gonna have to go and buy myself one of those big tubs of it because I've been using it like crazy. And some string, really, to hang your hearts on. So very basic products and very basic steps that we're going to take today to create some really, really pretty heart decorations. Okay, so first things first, what we need to do is we need to prime our plywood or MDF or whatever it is that you're working with. Now, I am going to use acrylic primer from Pentard, just white primer, but you can use white acrylic paint, white chalk paint, whatever the hell you have on hand. And so very simple, you're going to apply one coat of white primer of some sort over your wood. So just like I am here. Now that one side of your heart is done, you're going to leave it to dry, and then you're going to come back and do the other side. Alrighty, so both sides of my hearts are now primed, as you can see. But there is a thing. When you first apply your primer, you will notice, so have a look at this texture, right? You will notice that your primer lifts up wood fibers, right? So this is where your sandpaper comes in. Now you need to make sure that you don't use too coarse of a sandpaper for this, because you don't want to scratch your wood. We just want to smooth it out at this point, because when you apply your paper over the top of this, if it's not smooth, you're going to feel it through, and that's, you know, not good. So sandpaper, this is 600. Anything above 120 grit is going to be fine. So I'm just using 600 because that was what I first grabbed. Very simple, not very pleasant. But just give it a quick once over. Okay, here we go. So nice and smooth, right? So it might not look very smooth on camera right now, but to touch, it is. And that's how you know, right? You give it a little sand, run your finger across it. Does it feel smooth? It does? Cool. No, then, you know, give it a little bit more sand. All right, so all three of them are now nice and smooth. So we can pop these down, bin the paper. I missed the bin, if anybody's wondering. Then you want to grab a bit of tissue and wipe off the dust. And while you're at it, after sanding, make sure that you wipe off your work area as well. Very important, because all of that dust is settling on your workspace and then it gets stuck to your paint, and that's no good. So first things first, we're going to take our decoupage paper. So like I said before, this is the one that I'm going to be using. It's called Le Jaune by Decoupage Queen, from Decoupage Queen's fall release that just came out a little while ago. And it's such a pretty paper, isn't it? Anywho, so first things first, we need to decide which parts of the paper we're going to be using. So if I point my paper or put it up to the light and then put my little heart behind it so that it creates a shadow, I can then see which parts of the motif I'm going to get on the heart, right? And to make it a little bit easier for us, I am actually going to kind of roughly cut around this part, like so, just because we have 3 of them to do. I don't want them to overlap or, you know, get confused as to where I was supposed to put it and stuff like that. So easiest way, these scissors need to be tightened up. So the easiest way is to just cut your piece out, and then, you know, if you do it around the edges so that there's a little bit of an overhang, then you can also, of course, adjust it as you need to later on. And so again, so that's our first motif. Our second motif, I want to get a little bit of this baby grand here. So a little bit like this. And then for our third part, you could really fit another heart in here. For our third part, I think, see, I'd like this treble clef to be on there, but also I want the sheet music and the roses because they're fun. So I think we will turn it this way and actually just do the bow. It catches some of the keys, catches some of the sheet music over here, and we'll just go with this part of it. Step 3 or 4, I don't know. Anywho, you're going to take your decoupage glue. I'm going to use this Pentart Decoupage Varnish and Glue matte. It's not very matte, if I'm being completely honest, but it's fine. It's a glue. Any other glue will absolutely be fine. So you have Mod Podge, that's going to be fine. If you have any other decoupage glue from any other brand, that's going to be fine. If you have PVA glue, use carpenter's glue ideally, not school glue because that tends to yellow, but any other white glue is going to be absolutely fine, so don't stress over it. Right, so you're going to align your rice paper over your heart. Again, lift it up to the light if you need to make sure that you're getting all of the bits that you want to get, right? And then keep it like this, hold it, peel a little bit back, apply your glue on the bottom, press it down, then turn it over, peel back the other side, apply some more glue, and then again, once you got your glue on the bottom, get your rice paper, press it down. If you have clean hands, you're cool, use your hands. If your hands are a little bit, you know, dirty from glue before or paint or anything like that, I would suggest using like a cloth or a bit of tissue, or you can put a little bit of cling film over the top or something like that, you know, a little bit of plastic to smooth it out. Once you've glued down your rice paper on the bottom, what you're going to do is apply another coat of glue over the very top of your rice paper. Now you're going to want to leave it to dry. I know, hardest part, but leave it to dry. Ideally, naturally, if you want to, you can use a heat gun as well. So now that these are dry, we can move on to step, I don't know. So again, back to sandpaper. Grab your sandpaper and sand off the edges. So any overhung edges of your rice paper need to be gone. So try to use downwards motion like so as much as you can, right? Avoid going like this, though I'm super bad at this myself personally. I get carried away all the time, and before I know it, I'm going like this. But you know, try to be patient. And the reason for that is that if you happen to still have an edge that hasn't glued down properly, when you're going side to side, you're risking ripping it and actually like going down into your paper, and you know, then who knows, you will have a lot more fixing to do. Now that your paper is off, you can now check the edges, make sure that everything is glued down properly, and then you can just take your sandpaper and gently go over the edges like so, side to side, to thin them out a little bit, to smooth them out, because again, rice paper is a fibrous paper, so it will leave some fibers hanging off, and we don't want that. Ta-da! Now, the hole. We have a tool for that. This little baby. So, again, use that to poke through the hole for the hanging, and then I just usually twist it like so to get as much paper off as possible. But you want to be careful when you're pulling it back out, because again, if your paper hasn't glued down properly in that part, as you're lifting it back out, you may end up like lifting it up. And once you've kind of opened up the hole, then you can just go back over the edges a little bit like so to clean them off and make them look all nice and smooth and whatnot. And so once you're finished with decoupaging process, this is roughly what you should be looking at, right? So you're looking for nice clean edges. Try and not have any leftover papers anywhere dangling off, right? Needs to be on all nice and smooth. Right, pretty. All right then, so all three of the hearts are now decoupaged and sanded, nice and pretty. Oh, look at them, look at them, look at them. Right, I've cleaned off the hearts, so I gave them a little wipe, right, to make sure that there's no like dust or anything like that left over on them from sanding. I've cleaned off my desk, very important, keep your desk clean. Step whatever next is varnishing. Again, very important, very, very important before we move on to the next step, which is going to be painting the back, painting the edges, making these like nice faded edges, right, as you can see here. Before we do that, we need to varnish over our decoupage. Now, I know this glue says decoupage, varnish and glue. Now, yes, it says that, yes, there is varnish added into it. Yes, it is enough in some cases, not in this case, however. So just imagine that it just says glue. Get yourself some proper varnish. I don't care what kind of varnish you use, whether you're using matte, satin or gloss. It can be either one of them. It can be pretty much any brand. Ideally water-based. You don't want to be using solvent-based varnish, but water-based varnish of some sort. So yeah, the reason why this is important is because when we start painting the back, we're going to bring the color that is on the back over onto the front of our hearts, right, as you can see here. So we have a light back, and then we have lighter edges. Same here, so we have this like pinky red color, and then we have the same color on the edges here, faded out. Again, mustardy yellow around the edges. I don't know if I'm in the frame all the time. And so in order to achieve this kind of result without it eating into your paper and actually like staining your paper before you can remove it, before you can achieve this nice faded look, you need to apply varnish to protect your paper. Because again, paper is a very like porous material, right? It soaks everything in, and if you don't protect it, it will soak in that paint like nobody's business, and you're not going to be able to wipe it away or smudge it out or smooth it out or anything like that. So better safe than sorry. 2 coats of any kind of varnish that you have just on the front. So we'll shake up our varnish a little bit. You don't want it to go too bubbly. Then you're going to take a nice clean brush, and then you're going to take a small amount of varnish and you're going to apply it thinly over your little heart, just like so. So then once you're done with this, you're going to leave this to dry at least for like 30 minutes. What's even better is take your varnish, turn it around and read the instructions and see what it says on here as to like how long you need to wait to reapply another coat. Okay, so our varnish is now dry. So as you can see, when I point my little hearts to the light, they are completely matte, they are completely dry. So now we can start decorating the backs and, you know, get that nice faded edge, do the stenciling and all of that. Before we get to that step though, I just wanted to say a few quick words about the colors that I chose here, right? So these are a little bit different to the colors that I used on these 3. So what I did with these hearts, right, is I tried to kind of have a look at them and see what is the color that kind of stands out to me personally the most, and what color would I like to see right together with what is on the picture. Now, so this paper is slightly different, right? We have slightly different colors dominating the field. So I decided that I'm still gonna go with 3 different colors for each of them. And then while on this one, we have mainly beige tones, a little bit of blue, and then this like darker pink color, right? So I thought, well, this one here, Bourbon, is going to be a close enough match for this case, right, for this situation, to add a little bit of nice color to it, right? Pulling it from the roses here. Over here on this one, we have a little bit more color happening, right? We have beiges, whites, pinks, darks, and blues. And while we have blue on all 3 of them in the background, I decided that here we will go with blue tones because that's the color that is kind of dominating over there. And I don't have a shade that is going to be close enough to this. So I picked out this one, which is a nice, which is like a nice vintagey blue. And I have some white here. So we will mix that color ourselves. And then on this little heart, right, we have some blue beiges and a lot of black, but we also have a little bit of these lighter brown and slightly like yellowish hues going on over there, which goes very nicely with this mustard yellow paint, which is the color that I used here as well. So if you look at them closely together, they look quite nice together, right? Now I also have brown here, which is earthy brown, again from Pentart, and this is the color that we're going to use for our stenciling on the back. So on these hearts I use this stencil from Decoupage Queen. It is called Hobbylicious Elegant Baroque stencil. Very nice, very beautiful. As you can see, right, that's the stencil. And for these hearts, we're actually going to use a stencil of my own creation. Ta-da! It's a stencil that I designed. Woohoo! It's called Opulence. So it's also done through Decoupage Queen. So shameless self-promo. If you want one, you can get one on decoupagequeen.com or through one of our retailers, which you know where to look for links. So yeah, we're going to use this stencil instead on the backs, which I think is going to look fabulous. So first things first, before we start doing any kind of stenciling or doing the edges, we need to apply a couple of coats of paint onto the backs. Moving on to yellow. And then to mix our blue shade, we will first take some white. So I'm just going to scoop out some white paint. Now that I've got my white on here, I'm just putting a little bit of blue on this side, and I'm going to start mixing the white and the blue together, little by little, because I don't know how much we will need to get that nice light blue shade. And so I'm pretty happy with this. Just gonna stir it all up one more time. And now we can paint the back. Ah, what a pretty color. Okay, so unfortunately I am out of time to carry on doing this right now and just to get all of the paint on in one go. So what I will do with this, I'm going to cover it with cling film and try and store it away in like a cooler place until I'm ready to go back to it. Here we are. So I finished the backs of all of the hearts, and as you can see, I've already done the edges on these two, and I'm going to show you how to do the edges on this little blue one. Now this time you're going to take a smaller brush and start by applying paint to one of your edges. You will notice that obviously as you're going over it, you get little bits of paint on the very edge on the other side. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take your finger, very professional over here, and you're going to start smudging it out onto the paper. If you don't see too much paint going onto the edge, then you can go in a little bit more and actually like apply some paint onto the very edge like this. And then again, little bit at a time, use your finger to smudge out your paint. And this is why it's very important that you varnish your decoupage paper beforehand. It's so that when you're applying your paint onto here, if you apply a little bit too much, then you can, again, make sure that you have clean water here. Then what you can do is dip your finger in some water, right? Wipe it off, have some tissue on hand as well. Wipe it off a little bit so that it's not too wet. And then use your wet finger to carry on smudging out the paint. Right, so again, it's a very simple technique. You don't need any kind of special products or special tools for this, but it gives you very pretty results. I had to roll down my awning. Otherwise the sun was shining in too much into my room, and then it's too bright and then you can't see anything on camera. So basically this is what you're doing, right? You go over the edge a tiny bit and then smudge it out with your finger. Very simple. We will darken up these edges afterwards as well, right? But this is how we get like this base color and the nice like colorful fade onto our hearts. Swiftly moving on, let's apply our stencil on the back. So again, this one is called Opulence and it is by Decoupage Queen. You can find it in Dainty and the Queen line, which is my line of rice papers and stencils. And let's figure out which part of the stencil we're going to use. Oh yes, and I think this is what we're gonna go with. Look at that, it fits perfectly. So I'm gonna center it, or try and center it so that it's more or less even. So something like that. And then we will take our brown paint. I think brown is going to look better than black in this instance, just because it's like a more natural shade. I'll scoop some out onto my little plate, hold my stencil down. I'm going to use a stencil brush, so any kind of round, flat bottom, natural bristle brush will be absolutely fine for it. And then for your stenciling, you're going to pick up some paint onto your brush. You're going to get rid of some of the excess so that your brush is not too loaded up. And then you're going to start stippling like this. And that's kind of the best way to give your stencil a nice crisp-ish look without the use of like a stick spray, something that will make it stick on. So let's remove it. Oh, I'm always nervous for this part. Let's have a look. Ah, pretty, look at it. Look at it. Eee! Oh, so nice. It's so pretty. Why is there some blue paint here? Go away. I'm gonna leave this to dry for a little bit before we finish off the edges. I will do the other two. Now, with stenciling being done, we can now move on to the edges, which is now what step? I don't know, whatever. You're gonna want to use your stenciling brush still. And this time what you're gonna do is you're just going to stipple over the edge. Like so. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing, right? Still staying on the ridge mainly, but kind of tilting our brush towards the other edge a little bit so that we get some of that brown onto the edge. And so once your edges are done, it should look something like this. I will go ahead and do the edges on these two, and then I'm going to apply 2 or 3 coats of varnish onto each side of the heart to seal it all. One last step left. They're almost finished. Look at them, look at them, look at them. They're so pretty. So now they're all varnished. They're all finished off almost. Now we just need to add some string. What I have here is just some black ribbon. Also, sneak peek of our next project. Hopefully it'll turn out good. So grab yourself some nice ribbon. You can use whatever string or ribbon you would like to. Get yourself 3 pieces of roughly the same length, and then fold one of them in half like so. Put it through the hole, both ends, and then open up the loop, grab the other 2 ends and pull it through. Ta-da! It's a hanging heart. Now you can either leave these loose or tie them into a knot. There we go. They're on a string. You can hang them up. So here is the set that we created in this tutorial. This is what it looks like. It's so pretty. I love it. I love it. And here is the original set of 3 hearts that I made with cocoa paper. And what I want you guys to tell me is, which one do you like more? The first set of hearts or the second set of hearts? And will you be making some for yourself as well? As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate every single one of you, especially since I haven't uploaded anything in such a long time. Please do check out the description of this video, where you will be able to find the list of products used. Subscribe to my channel if you like this and you would like to see more of it, if you haven't already. And I will hopefully be seeing you in the next one. Bye!